in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up on this week's programme, environmental groups and nature lovers are furious that they're being denied access to the countryside and fresh air just to enjoy nature when the hunting lobby, which is very powerful in Cyprus, has got an exemption.
It's not only a request from the tree planters. We have the bird watchers, we have the people that do the nature trees, and all these actually are very angry about what is happening now with especially the hunters. If you hunt, you are allowed to go and do your hunting, and if you want to do a nature walk, they don't allow you.
And we talked to Nicosia's mayor about the opening, finally, of the revamped Eleftheria Square in the centre of our capital city.
People for the first time were able to see the whole development, because until now they could only pretty much see the bridge.
There have been some posts on social media earlier this week about the refusal to allow the people who have got these NGOs of planting so many thousand trees in all the districts of Cyprus, giving them exemptions so that they can go out during the planting season, even if there are limitations on the numbers, so that they continue with their project. They've been refused, while, extraordinarily, hunters and fishermen have been given exemptions. Well, I've asked the Greens MP Bambos Theobemptou to join us to discuss that this week. Bambos, first and foremost, I want you to tell us a bit, because I know you're into all of this stuff, about the short time that is available here in Cyprus with our climate for actually planting trees and giving them the best chance to take.
The idea about planting trees is that you use the beginning of the rainy season. You realize that the rainy season for Cyprus has gone up to November nowadays. And even now that we are in January, we have hardly seen any rain, serious rain. But you realize that it will stop very quickly. So we have throughout the year a very short period, which is November, December, January, February, and perhaps March, in order to do the planting. Because then it's the dry season, and a young tree will not survive on its own. You need to look after it afterwards. So we always do the planting during the rainy season, and then we support the trees throughout the years for another 3 years, I should say.
Right, and some of the locations where these trees are being planted are not in town, so it's not easy to allocate people to water them and look after them on a regular basis, is it?
No, it's very difficult. In actual fact, it's very difficult to find, first of all, the places where you do the planting. The second thing is that you need to check for permits, who owns the land and all this, and government doesn't help on this. The biggest difficulty that we face with all the tree planting groups is finding the places where to plant trees. So we have a problem there. The other problem, of course, is that government doesn't help with government land. They want to see if there are any future plans or whatever, not even on the perimeter of the land. They don't allow you to plant trees. And the other problem that we have is that there aren't enough trees to go around. The forestry department can produce only around 70,000 trees a year. There is a big plan for the energy and climate program of the European Union to plant a few million trees. And if you do the calculations, you realize that you cannot do this. With 70,000 trees produced per year, after 10 years, you only do 700,000 trees. So you are falling short of the 2 and 3 million they plan to do.
Well, I did see also posts from people who are part of these groups who have collected oak and plane tree seeds and are planting them, so they're trying to up the number. It is obviously going to be a very long haul, but I'm very interested on your take as to why the government during this second lockdown, where we're all obliged to ask permission to leave our houses for the tiniest reason, is allowing hunters and fishermen to break the curfew and do pretty much what they like, and yet what would seem to be a very reasonable request from the tree planters has been turned down.
It's not only a request from the tree planters. We have the bird watchers, we have the people that do the nature trees, and all these actually are very angry about what is happening now with especially the hunters. If you hunt, you are allowed to go and do your hunting, and if you want to do a nature walk, they don't allow you. So we, as a Green Party, issued a statement against the practices that they employ now. And what we want to do is we want to give the minister one day to think about it. And tomorrow we will also be coming out with a letter or try and do contact and try and do more on this issue, because a lot of people are very angry with these policies that they are implementing. It shows the strength of the hunting groups.
Who is actually responsible for giving that exemption? Is it the Ministry of the Environment or the Ministry of Health?
It is actually very difficult because the hunters get their permits from a service of the Ministry of Interior. The money that they pay goes into a fund which is handled by the Ministry of Interior, and they have no relation, these two, with the Environment Department. So it's the Ministry of Interior that manages this. So the responsible body, the overlooking minister, is the Ministry of Interior, definitely is.
Which brings to mind the thought that if he is responsible for hunters and is allowed to give an exemption, what is to stop the Minister of the Environment from giving an exemption to environmental groups?
That is something that is very difficult to do, because the hunters are licensed by a department under the Ministry of Interior. But NGOs, they're not under the supervision of the Department for the Environment. Again, as an NGO, you're under the Ministry of Interior, the responsibility of the Ministry of Interior, all the NGOs, no matter what the topic is of the NGO.
Has this been raised in Parliament? I mean, what do our MPs think about the fact that you're allowed out for an activity that is actually destructive of our environment, but you're not allowed out if you want to do something to try and improve it?
All I can say is that whenever we have an issue with the hunters in Parliament, almost all the other political parties, they support their demand. So anything we do, we know beforehand they are going to get the support that they want. You remember the situation the other day with the cages where they keep the dogs. We had, as a Green Party, an amendment to the law to forbid anyone to keep the dog permanently in a cage, and that didn't pass. The only votes we had was ours. Nobody has supported these demands.
And do you think that's because the hunters keep their dogs, for the most part, in small cages?
Yes, they keep them locked. The other issue that will be coming up soon, and you see the publicity around it, I'm going to make an amendment so that pet shops will not be able to sell dogs. With that amendment, it means that no one will be able to sell dogs. Anyone that wants to get a dog should go to one of the places where they will have the abandoned.
Well, the dog shelters, but you, do you mean that?
I want a dog, go to the dog shelter.
And do you mean that there will be no licensed breeders in Cyprus?
Exactly. We need to have a law that regulates breeding. We don't have that at the moment. But what we need to do is not allow the selling of dogs. Anyone that wants a dog, go to the dog shelter. And until government comes up with a law about who is a breeder, the fees that they pay, the responsibility they take, and all the parameters that we want to put in a law.
I think you're very hopeful that will pass, Bambos. I can't see it personally, and of course we've got
No. I'm not hope. I hope that it will pass, but I know for real, for sure, that all the other political parties will vote against my amendment. The minister knows my opinion about the need for a law, a regulation, I should say, regarding the definition of a breeder, who is a breeder, the responsibilities and all that.
And not to have puppy farms or breeding in just any old place without the proper controls and health issues. So this, I'm sure, with elections coming up, is really not going to change. It means that we've lost a year of tree planting just because of lobbies, basically.
We lost a year of tree planting not because only of that, but because of all the difficulties the government imposes on every group that wants to go out and plant trees. As I said, we have this difficulty now. We have the difficulty that they don't allow us to plant trees. They don't support the effort to find the proper place to plant the trees. And the regulations that they put on giving you a tree to plant are very strict. I can tell you that the tree planting groups are actually examining also the case of using seed balls, where you form a mud ball and you put into it certain seeds and you throw them, so that when rain comes, the ball will actually get wet and the seeds inside will actually grow, and this protects them from the birds. But we are a very long way to do this, and you realize that this will be a guerrilla practice rather than anything else, because you go in a place where you're not supposed to, and you throw these seed balls, and you hope for the best.
And this is brought about by a government that professes to be concerned about climate change. Quite extraordinary. Bambos Theobemptou, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
In other news this week, the Interior Minister has been on the back foot after a clash at the Purnara reception centre just outside Nicosia. It left 35 people injured and caused considerable damage to the camp. It's no longer a refugee issue, said Interior Minister Nikos Nouris, explaining that an interior barrier was breached and migrants from Syria and African countries clashed. The problem is that the camp was only built to hold around 1,000 people, and currently there are now 1,500 migrants packed into this small area, mostly living in tents with unsanitary conditions, a lack of facilities both in terms of toilets and hygiene and washing facilities. The strange thing is, and that's why the ministry has come under fire from a lot of people who've seen what's going on at the camp over the last several months, is that it was supposed to be a short-term reception centre and people weren't supposed to be taken there and kept in detention indefinitely. But using the coronavirus pandemic, it seems as somewhat of an excuse. Nobody has been allowed to leave the camp even after their requisite time there is up. So more and more people are coming in, but nobody's going out. And there doesn't seem to be any will on the part of the authorities to try and find alternative accommodation for those who should be entitled to leave. The other thing about using the pandemic as an excuse for what's going on there is the fact that in those cramped conditions, it's probably actually a breeding place for the spread of the coronavirus. So NGOs and groups who are fighting against racism in Cyprus are demanding that something should be done, and done quickly. One suggestion being mooted is that since there are so many empty hotels on this touristic holiday island, the government could commandeer some of them and move the migrants into better accommodation. But there's been no word from the authorities as to whether or not they're even going to consider such a simple solution. And another story in the news this week is the reform of municipalities. If I recall correctly, it must be close to a decade since this was first mooted. We have an extraordinary 30 municipalities on this small island for a population of under 1 million. And the government undertook a radical reform of the system some years ago. The first proposal was submitted in 2015 and rejected by Parliament on the grounds that there would be municipal elections the following year. Since then, we've had various experts come and tell us what would be the best thing to do, because the idea is that a reform would benefit taxpayers. Not much in Cyprus, of course, does. It would boost local democracy. It would give municipalities a chance to improve their services to citizens and make them economically viable, which at the moment they are not. But it looks like it might be back to the drawing board yet again, because when the bill came up before the relevant parliamentary committee this week, well, once again, they decided they wanted to change it. Now, after months of haggling, it seems that the parliamentary parties want to increase the number of municipalities from the proposed 17, which was an increase on the original suggestion of 14, and now they're asking for 21. Once again, forthcoming elections are probably going to play a part in this, and the hapless Cypriot taxpayer will no doubt once again be footing a bill because of the populism of so many of our MPs.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
After 9 long years, the centre of our capital city, Nicosia, is finally ready. Well, almost ready. Eleftheria Square has been renovated, revamped, well, completely changed, if we're honest. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it's been a bit of a nightmare for the municipal authorities for those almost 10 long years. Joining us to discuss where we go next is Nicosia's Mayor, Konstantinos Yorkagis. Konstantinos, you must be greatly relieved to have finally been able to open both the upper and lower parts to the public, because you've taken a lot of flack over those years, haven't you?
Yeah, and rightly so. But I would like to make a very small correction so that we give the correct, so that people understand correctly what finished and what has not finished. If I may, Rosie.
Yes, sure.
Yes. What we have completed, which is it was not an easy task, was something equally innovative, if I may say, for Cypriot standards, which was the underground parking, and underground meaning under Omiru Avenue. This may be something that is common abroad, but this is the first time a municipality in Cyprus tried to create underground parking under an already existing avenue in the center of the city. I think we have completed this task with flying colors, and in doing so, we needed to open and let the people start using the underground parking at Omiru Avenue. In order for the people that will choose to park at Omiru underground parking, in order to have access to the bridge, Platia Eleftheria, and the pedestrian area in Lydras, we needed to give them access to the western ramp and the main staircase of the Platia Eleftheria's bridge. So we decided to open certain parts of the moat of the lower level of the Platia Eleftheria's works. And in doing so, people for the first time were able to see the whole development, because until now they could only pretty much see the bridge. If you remember, also in many of our discussions, I used to say the bridge is only a part of the whole development, because the main development was the redesign of the moat and the connection. In other words, the ability of people to walk between different moat areas. For the people that are much younger than myself, in the past, the moat at the Field Club, the moat under Kostakis Pandelidis Street, the moat near Davila, they were all separate pieces. You couldn't easily access it on foot. Now we have unified, if I may use the word, the moat from the tennis club, the Field Club, all the way to the Davila parking area. And soon we will create a small corridor for the pedestrians to keep on walking in the Davila parking area. And we are building and getting ready another bridge for people to walk under at Kaningos in order to continue the walk, unifying the various mode areas.
There's been a little bit of talk about cyclists and people on scooters, and a lot of electric scooters, of course, are literally scooting around the capital city these days. Now, what's happening about that? Because I think initially, on the first couple of days, bikes and dogs and a lot of other things were not allowed, and there was a bit of an outcry. You've changed that, I think.
I think there was a misunderstanding. That's what I hope happened. But there was at no time did we disallow, obviously, dogs or bicyclists. I mean, I want to be able to take my dogs for a walk at Platea Eleftherias, and I would like also to go with my bicycle, which I did last Sunday. But with some caveats. First of all, the dogs always on a leash, and I think that was the misunderstanding. And bicyclists, what happened, as I was informed, was that we requested some bicyclists to dismount because there were too many people and too many children, and we asked them to push along their bicycles when either in the pedestrian areas or in Platea Eleftherias. But of course, bicycles are allowed. But when there is a huge crowd and a lot of children, we always recommend bicyclists to dismount and push their bicycles.
What about putting bicycle lanes in the whole area so that there is an area for cyclists and pedestrians learn that they don't walk on the cycle lane? If you try and walk on a cycle lane in Brussels, you're likely to get knocked over because you hear these bells ringing behind you and people whizzing past.
I think it's a square, and it's a square slash garden that kids should be allowed to run freely, and I think we should give priority to families being able to walk stress-free with their children.
Okay, but if you say that you've linked up all the area of the moat from the Field Club and it's going to go further and further round the walls, presumably eventually towards perhaps the Famagusta Gate, then it would make sense to have a cycle lane somewhere.
There is another bridge we need to fix in order to do that. Yeah, so excuse me, I interrupted you.
No, but just to suggest that then there is a lovely cycle ride for our cyclists to go all the way there.
We already started, if you visit the pedestrian and bicycle area of Bedieos, near the House of Parliament, you will see, actually now, if you go and visit them, you'll see some works being done in the municipal garden and outside in that area. That is the bicycle lane that will be extended to go all the way to Platea Eleftheria, and then we will continue until Frederick and the University of Cyprus.
Right, so there is a move afoot to try and encourage people, which I know you want to, out of their cars onto bicycles and to enjoy walking. What about the bus services that you introduced a while ago, particularly for the old city? Are they still running, and are they getting more passengers?
It's difficult to know, unfortunately, now. I know that we were getting more passengers and we were very happy with it. Now it's very difficult to know in the sense of what extent did COVID affect the numbers.
And then back to Eleftheria Square, there has been, and I think with some fairness, a lot of criticism about the lack of greenery on the top part. And the way it's built, you can't actually grow trees there, can you? Because it's all concrete. Is there any way that you can make it a little bit more natural? You know, have a few trees, pots, I don't know, something. It's in the summer it's going to be just like a solar heater under your feet, reflecting the sun back.
Yes, but it's a bridge. I think it's very difficult to plant trees on a bridge. And we have planted many trees, and the whole idea of greenery with the 13 or 14, I forget forget now, water elements and water fountains. The idea is to create a beautiful park, a green, beautiful water fountain park at the moat area. The bridge does not provide itself to plant trees.
Right, and then let's talk a little bit about the little parts of the old walls, particularly under the municipal building, which I think have got some quite interesting little features on them, which perhaps could have been highlighted to explain to people what they are, you know, whether it's a signature of a medieval stonemason or whatever.
Well, we're waiting for the Antiquities Department it's their responsibility to promote and the whole find, which is extraordinary, and hopefully in due time we will be able to inform people better on what that part is, when it was demolished, etc.
Now, what finally is the next step? Because, as you said, it's not finished. So what still has to be done? And when can we expect you to be able to say, that's it, we're complete?
We're fixing, we're trying to get the final test done for the fountains and the lighting. That's what we're working on now. The electrical stuff, which is quite complex. And depending if we're not stopped by COVID, not necessarily if the government stops us, but we have a very large team. We have people that have stayed in London. They cannot come now to Cyprus. We have people in Athens. So assuming that COVID doesn't stop us, I would say 1.5 months of testing for the fountains and lighting.
And will the lighting be solar powered?
No, it's not solar powered.
Why not?
Because it was not designed to be solar powered. There's no area to set up the solar panels.
That's a great shame, isn't it, when we're trying to be more sustainable? What about the other areas under your administration in Nicosia? Any move afoot there to use the solar power we have every day here to do a little bit of cost saving on energy?
We have some solar panels in some municipal buildings, but definitely they do not cover the whole the electricity needs of the municipality. We also have some lighting in parking places that are powered by solar, but that's the limit at the moment.
Right, and finally, what about the cost? Because this project went way over budget. Where do we stand in terms of what funding we're getting from the EU?
Budget. It didn't go over budget. We tendered 3 times, and the budget increased based on the tendering process. It didn't over budget. We paid more than what the first tendering process was about, but through public tendering. So it's we increased the budget. I think the works will cost from, and the reason I don't know is that I don't know the final costing, but it's according to the last tendering that we signed. And
what percentage of that is going to be met by EU funding? Because that was something that was discussed quite a lot when there were delays about whether we'd still get it. Are we still going to get that EU funding?
We already did. I mean, it's 85%. I mean, we proceeded based on the assumption that we would be funded by the European Union.
So your feelings now that it's open and you can take your bike down there and walk around?
I think it's something very, very beautiful and something very unique.
Unique it most certainly is, and we'll wonder how long it takes before our capital citizens decide that actually it wasn't such a bad idea after all. Konstantinos Yorkadis, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.